Timothy is rebuilding his identity as best he can. The android persona is just one step along the way. As soon as he feels stronger and more sure of himself, it should drop away naturally.
I assume this is not the time to confront him about what happened to his ship.
Not yet. The best thing we can do right now is let Timothy take us where he wants to go. We should support the process and even encourage it.
Data, I would like you to make Timothy the best android he can possibly be.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Fully Functional, a TNG podcast. I'm Maggie, joined by Jeff and Dory.
Yo.
Jeff and I are veteran Trekkies, and Dory is a rookie Trekkie, and we are taking her on her first journey through Star Trek: The Next Generation. Today we're discussing the Season 5 episode, Hero Worship. Original air date, January 25th, 1992. And as always, we'll take it to Dory for the recap.
Okay, we start off. 2 days ago, Starbase 514 lost contact with the research vessel Vico,
yeah.
which was sent to explore the interior of a black cluster. The Enterprise is en route to investigate. So the black cluster kind of looks like tie-dye.
I was going to say it looks
also
like different clouds in Photoshop.
Oh, yeah, I could see that. Yeah. But the background was black instead of white.
Yeah, I just want to say that Black Cluster doesn't sound like a sci-fi thing. It sounds like something that somebody who doesn't sci-fi was just like, yeah, we need a Star Wars thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so then they find the ship and it's just floating, no life signs. The inner and outer hull has been breached, like decks are open to space. And they're like, okay, away team can go. But also it's like super high risk of collapse. So don't prepare at all and just go in with no protection.
Yeah.
I honestly couldn't believe it.
As is standard.
I know. I honestly thought for this one particular case, I thought they'd actually do it. But
no, they're fine.
No,
they're
Riker,
fine.
Riker, Geordi, and Data are the away team. So they find the computer because they want to figure out what happened, and they transfer data from the computer to a big USB. It's basically like this, like a massive hard drive.
Yeah. Actual data, not the person data.
Why not both?
Yes. I've been converted to saying the word data for like both meanings now instead of data. So like, which was what I used to say. So, you could say I've been converted.
Nice.
Okay. So, so they're sending the data and, they hear a noise. It's a little boy under a bunch of crap. And so, they're going to get him out, but it's tricky because the kid is under so much debris. Like there's like a bunch of shit on
Is
him.
this 2 episodes in a row in which some kid was trapped under a bunch of like falling crap in a spaceship?
It is. Yes.
Yeah.
Huh. Oh, and needs ultra strength in order to rescue them.
Oh yeah. Meep. So Data moves the beam, and then like, okay, Data's like, he can move it, but the beam will fall, like the ceiling could fall in. So Geordi and Riker go back to the ship. I will say Data's like bedside banner or like personal, small talk is getting better.
Mm-hmm.
Like props to him. He's like, it's okay. We're gonna be like, he was good.
He walks the boy through everything that they're gonna do and what's gonna happen.
Yeah, I was like, that's actually reassuring. Data.
Yeah.
I'm very proud.
I actually wanted to point out before we go any further, but this episode seems to go back and forth between whether Data has actually developed over the last 5 and change years of the show, or whether he's the same character.
I would disagree.
No, in that there's quite a few instances where he's going into detail about something the same way that he would have in season 1. And like, I realize he's explaining it to him, but many of them are things that he has experienced much more of at this point. We can get further into it later, but I'd say in terms of like going into detail of that discussion point, maybe let's wait until Dory's done. But I do definitely want to bring that up.
Yeah, I will say I still disagree, but we'll get into that later.
Okay, so then Data is able to grab the kid and get back to the oh yeah, they can't like teleport the kid under the debris, so they have to get him out. So they Data gets him out. They go back to the Enterprise.
I just want to say it's really interesting that there are fucking emergency bulkheads on the ship that other starships from the same planet can't get through. Seems like a bad design.
Well, it's
Yeah.
usually not as on top of each other as that.
Wait,
I-
no,
I
these
thi- I
these
think
were
it's-
these were the ceiling bulkheads that kept the what do you call it? That kept those decks from decompressing.
Yeah, but are you talking about how they can't transport him through that?
Yeah.
Yeah, he said because there's too much of that whatever alloy he said. I think that's because it's all concentrated in rubble, not because it's like it would be more dispersed like throughout the ship, I think.
I guess I could give them that, but they did have an issue that they mentioned before they transported over that was something similar, where they were like, oh, well, we can't transport onto these decks because there's interference from the emergency bulkheads. And I'm like, really? From your own bulkheads?
Oh yeah, that is pretty bad design.
Yeah. Good job, Starfleet.
Speaking of good job, Starfleet, we welcome back the truly most pointless transition. We welcome back another favorite segment that we haven't done since last episode, Boy Corner, in which the child, whose name is Timothy,
Timothy, the boy.
gets referred to as the boy 3 times this episode. Okay, so they're looking through like kind of like trying to go over what they think maybe happened, and because Timothy is like, oh yeah, another ship shot at us and they came over and they had purple helmets and phaser rifles, and Jesus Christ, Timothy, oh shit, okay, because Timothy's parents were on the ship. His dad was the second officer and his mom, I wrote it down, was the ship's system engineer. So, like, fuck. Like,
Yeah.
rip to them. That's fucking sucks. So Timothy is in the sick bay, and Data has to go to engineering, but Timothy, like, holds his hand, and Troy is like, Data, maybe you want to stay a little bit longer? And Data's like, okay, got it. Also, another episode in a row that Troy is fucking killing it.
Yeah, the writers seem to be remembering that she's a fucking professional.
Yeah, she's fantastic this I would say this is as good episode for her as it is Data, if not
This
honestly
is a good
more.
season for her so far.
If I'm going to be honest, she is like, and she deserves it after all the bullshit she's had to deal with. I'm so happy they're giving her shit to do, and she's like,
You know
doing
what's
a good
really
job.
weird about that, actually? The guy who did the teleplay for this episode, Joe Manosky, whom I mentioned before, for better or worse.
Oh yes,
He did not think that that Troy did super well in this episode, given that he had to write the teleplay for it. I don't know if that's criticism of Troy or criticism of his own writing. But I think what it kind of comes down to is that Manosky flat out says he doesn't think that Troy is a good character for Star Trek, specifically because he doesn't think that like a therapist should be on the bridge. And he made a point of saying that he didn't think that that particular thing in TNG would age very well. And no, I think it's fine.
I think that it's a great idea to have her on the ship. I love Troy. I'm just so happy that she's had like this episode before. I hope this run continues because like I'm like proud of her. I'm like, look at her go. You're doing great, sweetie. Okay, so Data like very delicately then like takes Tim's hand. Oh no, sorry, he takes his hand out. Timothy. Oh my god, I wrote Tim in all my notes, but I will call him Timothy because Timothy was a long word to write. Listen, I need to save space if I'm going to write in the margins. I don't like to waste paper. Okay, so Timothy falls asleep and Data like very, very delicately like pulls his hand out. And Troy says, his world is gone, Data. We're going to have to help him build a new one. I was like, oh boy. Oh, yeah. Okay, so now Geordi and Data are trying to figure out like their like whatever hit the Vico must have like set up EM. Is that
Yes.
electromagnetic?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yes, look at me knowing terms. Yes. This is an episode of learning. Just for me though. So an electromagnetic pulse that flashed through their computer banks because like 83% of their records were lost and all their sensor logs were also lost. So Data asks Geordi that if he experienced a traumatic event as a child. And I was like, this is going to be terrible because from the end of Data's question to when Geordi starts to answer, it is 21 seconds.
Yeah.
So like, even though Data does have Geordi has a line, it's still because it doesn't his line doesn't answer the question. So it takes 21 seconds for him to, I did kind of a few timing in this episode. It called for it though. So 21 seconds. And I was like, oh shit, this is going to be fucking terrible. It's not great. Geordi was in a fire when he was 5. And like, though he was only in there for like a few minutes, it was pretty fucking traumatizing. And, he says that it was the longest couple of minutes of his life. And at that point, then like after that, Geordi was like scared to like, lose sight of his parents because he was alone in the fire before he was pulled out. Mm-hmm. So,
lose hearing of his parents.
Yeah, it was pretty terrifying for him, which is like, Christ, I've seen fires in real life, but like, never in one. That's, that's gotta be terrible. Okay, so now we cut to a different classroom because we're at school, I guess, this season. And different teacher. Sorry, Miss Kyle. We don't know this teacher's name, though.
No, he's just badly dressed teacher
But
number
it's
5.
He might be teacher for like the older students because he seemed like he's much older than Alexander is.
Yeah. So the teacher's talking about mythology or whatever, and other kids are listening or they have a book, but like Tim is working on a sculpture, and the teacher's like, hey Tim, like we're kind of done with that for now. We will circle back to it later, but like maybe let's pick up the book. And Tim's like, absolutely not, hard pass. I am not done with my sculpture. Fuck right the fuck off. The teacher then looks at Troy, who is in the other room. Like there's a window, like there's like a viewing room to the classroom, I guess.
Yeah, they use that a couple of times in this episode, and it's like, is there just a viewing room for this class? Like, that's more of a kindergarten thing.
Yeah. It's kind of weird, but I mean, I don't know. Okay, so then next scene, Geordi's like, oh, the magnetic residual analysis confirms the Vico was definitely attacked in the black cluster, and graviton wave fronts pushed the ship to where they found it. Can you tell I wrote that word for word? But there's like no phaser burns on the hull. Is that parts or points? Curse my terrible writing. We'll go with points to a disruptor style weapon. Oh yeah, that makes more sense. That parts. If I finish reading the sentence. So points to a disruptor style weapon, energy burst from less than 3,000 meters. Yeah, that's an M. I wrote it really poorly, though. So Picard's like, oh, yeah, that's a strategy consistent with a cloaked vessel. And they're like, could it be Klingon or Romulan? And then they're like, well, the Breen are nearby. They have got an outpost nearby.
First mention of the Breen.
Ooh, are they significant? Oh, I guess so. Well, I guess there's something. There's something if it's like first mention of them.
They're kind of like a Trek boogeyman that gets brought up quite a bit over the years.
Oh, okay.
There's a couple of other Trek boogeymen that are there. the just kind of things that they'll mention, and then eventually they get introduced, and it ends up being like really anticlimactic. But the Breen are fine. It's just you'll hear them mentioned, and you'll hear things that are not necessarily consistent with each other about them. It's one of those like, oh, who are they? They're bad. They're the rumors, and you never really find out until they're finally introduced, and then they're just like, oh, yeah, they're fine.
Wait, Jeff, are you saying there's not consistency in Star Trek?
I know, right? It's really strange.
That's so weird. Never would have seen that coming. Okay, yeah. So the Breen, they have outposts in the sector, and this attack is consistent with both their tactics and technology level. Of course, it's not them. We find out how, and we'll get to that in a bit. Picard is also in sport mode, and now I've learned I am kind of now feeling betrayed, because I thought if Picard is in sport mode, that meant he was going to do something. No. Picard just wears sport mode sometimes, so I'm going to have to like give up sport mode.
Unfortunately, you misinterpreted casual mode as sport mode.
I guess so. Well, I do like, I'm still going to call it sport mode, but I do like the outfit. It's a good look. Okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah. But like the Breen don't have like purple helmets and shit. So they're like, that's not consistent with Tim's story. So I was like, gasp, but did Tim lie? Because like, then they're like, it's not likely for like the Breen to have boarded the ship the way that he described, and Geordi finds like no evidence. So Troy says, if he's lying, I haven't been able to sense it. Perhaps his emotional trauma level is too high. I'm like, how high is it? No, I'm kidding.
Fun fact, they say that that Timothy is like, oh, it's not possible because he described like people with helmets. Yeah, fun fact, when they eventually introduce the Breen, they do wear helmets.
They do.
Are they purple, or are they just
No,
different
they're not
color?
purple.
No, there's no purple on them. They're very earth toned.
Oh, okay. So then Troy asks Data to spend time with Tim, because like maybe Timothy will tell him what really happened, because Data was the one that saved him. So Troy's just like, Data, just like, hang out with him, be yourself. So then like Tim is very psyched to see Data. Oh, okay. So Data goes to visit Tim, and he is working on Tim is attempting to recreate the Dokkaeran temple
Dokkaeran.
Yep, that. Kurl Hanesh. Sure. So Tim asks Data what he thinks, and Data's pause should have been enough of an answer. He didn't even need to like verbalize that it kind of sucked.
Yeah.
But just like Data's pause was perfect. And then
look at what he's working with.
Yeah.
And then Data then proceeds to absolutely roast this child's sculpture. And then Tim gets upset and he knocks over the top floor of this sculpture, saying he can't do anything right.
Well, he asked Timothy if he wanted a frank evaluation. So
yes, yeah. So listen, you ask for honesty, you're gonna be roasted. Jeff Ross shows up and just starts shitting on Timothy's sculpture. Okay, yeah, so like Tim knocks over the top floor of this sculpture, and I'm like, honestly, Tim, I gotta agree with Data, because like, what the fuck are you building? Because okay, here's what this kid did, and this is like, okay, I like Timothy's fine, but like, he picks one side of like the top floor and puts like a set of columns that are connected, and then puts like random single columns, and then takes the roof and just puts it on top of it, but not in the middle, just like on a side. And he's like, yeah, this should stay up. And when it collapses, he's like, well, fuck me, I guess this is never gonna work and I can't do anything. And I'm like, Timothy,
yeah,
are you kidding me? But then like Data offers to help him, and but when he does that, then Geordi's like, hey Data, can you come by? But Data's like, he turns around, he has like this moment. Data's got a lot of good like kind of like retro, spective moments where he's just sort of like thinking to himself and just does his little like head tilts.
Yeah.
And then he decides to turn around and he speed builds the temple. And then Tim's like, how did you do that? And also, if androids are better than humans, and Data's like, well, mentally and physically, yeah, we're like better, but we have no emotions. Which is bullshit. That's like what I feel like Data would be saying. This strikes a chord in Timothy. Because he's like, oh, so you can't be happy or sad. And Data's like, no, yeah, that's correct. But like, we honestly, at this point, we know that's bullshit because Data has been sad before.
Mm-hmm.
So,
in his
like,
own way.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's what this episode was like. I liked it, but there was like a little bit of frustrations of like, we keep touching on this exact same thing over and over again when Data has already proved that he can like feel something. Or like he understands like the like emotions better than he like wants to admit.
Well, that's what I kind of mean about it. Like I don't feel like the way that he's explaining it is doubting himself as much as these are things that have already been tread upon and they've already been resolved. And
yeah,
like
I think they're pretty consistent throughout the series of Data maintaining that he doesn't have emotions, and the other characters being like, you know, they'll give a little comment here or there, or a little like side eye being like, oh, you understand emotions better than you think you do.
yeah, but then he'll never actually then like he'll go to the next episode then and be like, nope, no emotions, and I'm like, girl, we know you
like
can feel something.
they'll start that process again is what I mean. Like I feel like there is kind of a resolution. There are times when he and Picard have discussions where it flat out says like, look, clearly there is something more here than you're willing to admit, and then they have a discussion about it.
Yeah.
Now I can't remember exactly when one of those came up, but those have happened, and this isn't an issue with this episode in particular. This is an issue that I think they have throughout TNG, and God, it gets so much worse in the movies, where they really just can't decide what level Data has reached from episode to episode, and they go to a baseline. Now, the baseline does change a bit from the very beginning to about maybe season 3 or so, but after that, it just kind of retreads on that issue over and over again. And while they usually do a good job when they do retread on it, and they end up treading over like different they tread over it in different ways. They tread over it in with different topics surrounding the same subject, but him flat out saying the things that he does to Timothy in this, I guess you could argue that because he's talking to a child, like it's not quite the same as him like being frank in a like very deep discussion about it, and I would definitely accept that.
But I think it's consistent with Data's view of himself. He still doesn't consider.
He doesn't give himself the credit that he actually feels stuff. He just is continuing with the narrative that like he doesn't, but yeah, he doesn't seem to change his mind for it, but we've seen the emotion.
Okay.
Because like Timothy's like, after Data's like, hey, this kind of sucks, Timothy's like, you hate it, and he's like, I'm incapable of hatred. But, like, I think back to the episode where, I forget the guy's name, but where he kidnaps Data to be his, like, toy or whatever.
Oh, the most toys.
The most toys. Yeah, he definitely hated that guy.
Yes.
For sure.
Oh, yeah.
I totally understand the appeal to Timothy of no emotions, because he's going through
This is
emotional turmoil.
Oh, for sure. 100%. So then Tim asks Data if they can build something else or something later, and Data says that would be acceptable. So Data leaves, and then Tim does a surprisingly good impression of Data in the mirror with like the head like movements, in which honestly, while I was watching it, I started doing it just out of like watching them do it. Like I stopped doing it the second the episode was done, but like there's so much head movements in this.
I did the same thing, honestly.
Yeah, it's kind of great. Okay, so next day or later in the day, who knows? Time is something. Time means nothing. So Troy has an appointment with Tim. She goes to see him, and he's got a spiffy new outfit that is looks like it's trying to be Data's, obviously, because Tim, she's like, how are you? And he's like, I am functioning within established parameters. And Tim says that he's an android. Yeah, Tim, honestly, like the actor who plays Timothy, I wrote it down. His name is Joshua Harris. He was pretty good in this.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, I thought he did a good job.
One thing I'd like to
Yeah.
give the writers credit for is because they usually can't write children at all, and they kind of gave themselves a good excuse to not have to write a child in this episode, and I kind of appreciate that.
Yeah. Okay, so then Timothy says androids do not need to. Oh, okay. Troy brings him to 10 forward. And she's like, is there any, would you like something? Or the waitress says, you want something? I don't remember. Doesn't matter. Then Timothy answers, androids do not need to eat or drink. Then he sees like a fuck ton of ice cream. And then he's like, however, we do sometimes like to taste things. What did I write? A tamarind? God, I don't know what the fuck I wrote.
It's a tamarind frost.
Okay, tamarind frost. Okay, I thought that was an H. It's an N. Okay, still looks like an H. He's like, tamarind frost, please. I couldn't help but notice Timothy's like contractions though, because he's like says I'm and I've a few times.
Yeah.
So,
But he's just
not a perfect impression, but like, listen, I'll allow it.
He's grieving.
Yeah. Yeah, excuse me, child. I know you're having a hard time right now, but your impression of Data is lacking. You could be doing better. Because I'm going to criticize this child to his face. No, it's
across
fine.
the board.
Yeah, I'm going to destroy his self-esteem. So Troy like humors him, but she doesn't shut it down, which I like, and then she kind of like talks about it later. And so then Tim says he's always been an android, and I'm like, oh, Tim. So Troy then explains to Picard that it's like not really that crazy that Tim is behaving like this, and she's like, don't worry, he's still super traumatized.
Yeah.
It's all good. So then Troy, she goes, the best thing we can do right now is to let Timothy take us where he wants to go. We should support the process and even encourage it. And then Picard goes, Data, I would like you to make Timothy the best android he can possibly be. I was like, that's very cute.
That was such a fucking Saturday morning cartoon line, but I found it really funny.
Yeah.
Listen. Yeah, I'll
super
take
cute.
it. It's
Yeah.
cute. It's cute. Okay, so now we get to see a montage of Data. Oh, no, wait. Okay, that's after. Okay, this actually was a pretty incredible. I love this scene. So Data has Timothy in front of him, and he wants to do his hair so he looks like Data. So Data's got these 2 hairbrushes in his hands, and Timothy will not stop moving his head.
Yeah.
And Data's like, can you please fucking stop?
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, Brett Spiner is truly perfect in this scene. His like tiny like facial expressions and like the head movements when trying to just like grab Timothy's head was so perfect and so good. Eventually he like is able to get a grip and starts brushing Tim's hair back so it matches his. And then Timothy kind of like starts asking Data about like bad dreams, and Data's like, I don't sleep. And they sort of like, he's like, Timothy, are you having bad dreams? No, he doesn't ask bad dreams. Data asks it in a very specific word,
Data
but
way.
I think it's like disturbing dreams or something.
Yeah.
And Timothy's like, no, I'm fine. No, it's all good.
I do not require sleep.
Yeah. Okay, so now in sickbay, Dr. C confirms that everything is functioning within established parameters. I love that everybody is like going with it, and like nobody's being like this child's being ridiculous. He needs to face. No, everybody goes along with it, and it's very nice.
grow up,
and I
kid.
like it. Okay, so now,
Yeah. Just play into the fantasy.
yeah, I just realized there isn't a montage. I'm just thinking of the next scene when they're painting. So, okay, they're painting. So Tim and Data are sitting beside each other. Data is painting a lovely landscape, and Tim is painting the depths of hell.
Yeah.
Okay, I would put that painting on my wall. That
Yeah.
shit's cool.
It is a cool
It's not
painting.
a bad painting. Yeah, it looks pretty interesting. It definitely looks
But
like
it is.
angry fire.
Yeah.
Oh, boy. Yeah.
But it's definitely saying something.
Yes. Okay. So then, I was watching this last night, and Tim and I yawned at the same time in this scene. I was like, oh, jinx. And then, Data then tries to yawn also, and
It's an attempt. An attempt was made.
It looks like
It's pretty horrifying.
yes. Yeah, definitely a attempt. It kind of looks like when baby chicks are trying to like catch food that are being dropped in their mouths. Or no, it's bird. No, like the birds.
Yeah.
Like, when like the parent bird is like eats the food, chews it up, and spits it in the bird's mouth.
Yeah.
Data's the baby bird getting the food. That's what the mouth made me think of. Oh, very side note. I said 2 cardinals today, like hanging out with each other on a tree. And I was like, excuse me? What is happening? You guys having a meeting or something?
Cool. We've been getting cardinals in my backyard lately, and it's been really neat.
Oh, yeah. Because like I haven't seen them for months. And all of a sudden 2 were just like hanging out while I was walking to the bus.
Nice.
It was, and I'm not a bird person, but I was like, excuse me, what is happening here? It feels very out of season, but I'll allow it. Because I control the weather. And I decide when the birds can come back.
Birds are not allowed to have friends.
Yeah. Birds live solitary lives.
No
fine.
birds until I allow it.
If it was up to me, there'd be no birds, though. I hate birds. No, fine. The cardinal, it was fine.
Well, birds aren't real. They were replaced in the 1980s.
Oh, of course, for surveillance.
Yeah.
Okay, so then Tim falls asleep upright, and Data picks him up, and I legit thought that Data picked up the chair also. I didn't realize, like, he just picks up Timothy, but like, the way that it was shot, just like the angle, I thought he was picking up the chair also. But he puts Timothy down on the couch and just like lets him sleep. Okay, so now the Enterprise is starting to enter the Black Cluster. It is a bumpy ride, to say the least. So Worf is like, oh, there's something at 4,000 kilometers off the starboard bow, and it's possibly a ship. And they're like, red alert. And they're like, just kidding. Then something has now reappeared at 400,000 kilometers off the port bow. Just kidding. Now back to the starboard. And Riker's like, the Black Cluster is distorting the sensors. And it's like an echo of the Enterprise reflecting off the wave fronts. Mm-hmm. Science.
Yeah.
The Black Cluster is upon you.
So they're like, okay, we're cool. Cancel the red alert. So, okay, Troy and Data are... Ooh, I'm just reading my notes, and I'm like, when the fuck did this happen?
They're watching him in school again, I think.
Oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so Troy and Data... I just wrote Troy and Data watching Tim. Tim laughs. So Data says, oh, okay, yes, he's in the class. Okay, yeah. So Timothy laughs, and Data's like, my work is done.
Yeah.
But Troy's like, hold your horses, which I did write in my notes. That is a phrase that Data would explode over hearing.
Yeah.
It would confuse him a lot. And okay, a laugh is a start, but there's still more to do. And so Troy tells Data that he should tell Tim about his fascination with humanity and the appeal humanity has for him. And that might find him might allow him to easier to become a boy again. Oh, I didn't even count that boy. Oh my God, is there 4 boy mentions in this? No, that's not the context of the boy that
No,
we're looking for in Boy
that
Corner.
doesn't count.
Yeah, that doesn't count. Okay, so then Data and Tim, they drink these smoothies with these huge, very long straws, which I am intrigued about. They look glass, and they're like an L shape. They're just like very long. So they're drinking the smoothies, and there's like ice cream and like little sweets and stuff with them. Oh, they're in 10 forward. And Tim asks Data if he likes it, and Data's like, I can analyze the shit out of it, but like taste is not applicable. Mm-hmm. So Data then says like he's never been able to experience, some things that humans have with regards to food, like Data has never had his mouth water over something. And Timothy's like, I don't understand why you'd want to be human when androids are quote unquote better. Then Data says, but I cannot take pride in my abilities. I cannot take pleasure in my accomplishments. And Tim says, but we never have to feel bad either. And then Data says, I would gladly risk feeling bad at times if it also meant that I could taste my dessert. And I was like, oh.
I do like that Star Trek is very consistent about its idea that that
They like
pride
dessert?
no, that pride and pleasure are kind of like central to what the human experience is.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's something that starts way back in the original series with Spock, and how there's this this thing between both enjoyment and taking pride, not like shit pride, but like being proud of your own accomplishments and whatnot, are these things that are supposedly alien to Spock in the original series, and the show does spends a lot of time focusing on these aspects of humanity and how they kind of like make up what the human experience is. And it's nice to see that get transferred over to Data, both pride and enjoyment, because like taking pride in things is not bad, but it's something that a lot of people have been made to feel guilty about.
Yeah,
sure.
It's like, pride is one of those things where it needs to be measured.
Yes,
know?
Absolutely.
Like, you can't have too much pride in something.
Yeah, to figure out what the line is between being an asshole and just being proud of yourself.
Yeah, it's like, give yourself credit, but like, don't take all the credit.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, like you're allowed to say like, yeah, I'm good at this thing, or like, yeah, I did this, but also don't be like, and no one else helped, and none of my circumstances mattered, and you know, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Okay, so back on the bridge, Worf is like, oh, gravitational wave front is intensifying. Wave front intensity is increasing steadily. Goes 1,100 standard G units and rising. I don't know what that means, but I don't care either.
G units are units of gravity.
Yeah.
So it's like, what did he say, 20? So that's 20 times Earth gravity.
Yeah. G is a measurement
1100
specifically of the
standard.
gravity at ocean level on Earth.
Yeah.
Okay, so does that make sense in this context then? If
Yeah,
it's-
20 Gs is pretty fucking big.
Yeah.
Well, 1,100.
Oh my
standard
God.
G. Yeah.
Jesus Christ. Yeah, that's like being a little too fucking close to the sun bad. Holy shit.
Yeah.
What? Ugh.
Like the force of like 3 or 4 Gs is enough to kill a person.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
But in cosmic terms, that does make sense. It is possible for things to be that, like, have that
big?
much force. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right, so they're getting closer into the cluster, and it's like circular and fuzzy, kind of looks like a cloudy night. and it's
Into the
pretty.
black cluster.
Yeah. So like the sensors are getting distorted, and Picard does a little experiment with phasers. Like they shoot it out, and it kind of gets like, not, I guess, rejected, like deflected from the main circle, the fuzzy circle. And it just like, it doesn't do shit. Like it doesn't do anything to it. It just kind of, appears and then disappears.
Looks cool though.
So so then they kind of determine that it's looking less likely that the Vico was actually attacked by another, it's looking less likely that the Vico was attacked in the cluster because of phasers and sensors were compromised. Does that make sense? Oh, like attack. Okay, it's like they mean like, okay, it's less likely that they were attacked, like somebody else was attacking them in the cluster.
That's right.
Okay, yes, that makes sense. Okay. So Picard then is like, okay, we're done with pussyfooting around this. He's like, Tim, what fucking happened?
Yeah.
And
I mean, he doesn't
Data
say,
is
hey,
like,
you're lying right off the bat. He's just like, all right, so we need you to explain it.
yeah.
To Picard's credit, he is gentle with him.
Yes, extremely.
Yeah.
But it boils down to, hey, what the fuck actually happened, bro?
Yeah. So Data then reminds him that androids do not lie. So then Tim drops an absolute fucking bomb on everyone. I was shocked, but of course, turns out I shouldn't have been. So Tim's like, yeah, I killed them all, and then cut to commercial break.
Yeah.
And so basically the ship was like, so Tim then like explains the ship was shaking, and Timothy like tried to grab onto something, and his elbow hit, or like his arm hit the control panel, and that's when like shit happened, like the explosion on the ship happened. And so he thought he hit something and caused the explosion, but Troy is like, oh, that is like purely coincidence, like you were not responsible. And then Data and Picard also just like let him know that it's impossible, because like you need certain clearance to be able to do shit on the computer, so like there wouldn't be an accident like that.
Yeah, because for once there's actually security features.
Yeah, they
Yeah, I was gonna say this ship apparently has more security than the flagship of the Federation, because we have seen rando fucking people just go to the computer and start doing shit. Remember I think it was like season 2 or maybe it was season 1. They found those people from the
010011 guys.
They found those people from the 20th century and brought them on the ship, and one of them like calls up Picard's office in the middle of him doing shit, and he's just like,
oh
what
yeah, the
hell?
neutral zone.
Yeah, that's it. And he's just like, what the hell are you contacting me for? And apparently the security feature for all of communication systems all over the ship is just the honor system.
Yeah, because the guy asks Picard, well, how come there isn't like a password to use the computer, and Picard's like, we don't need one because we all know like we can all be adults and not use it irresponsibly. Even though that's also after fucking Wesley took over the comms.
Yeah.
Yes.
Shit, but what was I gonna say? Yeah, for once they have fucking security features.
Yeah.
And
on a different ship. Yeah, so then Tim has been cleared from his crime that he thought he committed. He thought he committed mass murder. No, Tim, you did not. But I do have a side question. Why the fuck was this kid on the bridge?
Yeah.
I don't even mean the Enterprise.
That wasn't the bridge. That was, I think it was the second or third deck.
No, because
he was on the bridge because he explains that he heard them saying like the warp thing, like the warp powered shields thing. He was there.
That didn't necessarily mean he was on the bridge, because they did a thing earlier on where he was found on like deck 3 or 4.
Yeah, I think they found him in like engineering or something.
Why was he in engineering then? He's a child. What is this kid?
Yeah,
Tim.
It's a very small ship.
Yeah, either way, it doesn't make sense that Tim was where
he's
he
in
was.
any of these. Yeah, that he's in any of these spaces, that he would have overheard any of this stuff. It doesn't make any sense, but okay. Okay, so then so the stuff starts happening with the ship, and Tim's like, oh, this is how it started on the Vico. And they're stuck. They can't get out with warp. There's too much distortion. And Tim then remembers that on the Vico they were saying more shields, because they keep adding power to the shields on the Enterprise. And then I also was like, why is the kid allowed on this bridge? But listen.
Well, he was in the ready room, and they walked out when an emergency happened and happened to be there, and he refused to leave.
Yeah.
Yes.
But if like a child's refusing to leave the bridge, I feel like, I mean, okay, like I'll allow it for this episode, but if a child is refusing to get off the bridge, I feel like there's somebody for that. I mean, they're just going to let a child stay on the bridge just willy-nilly, like, because he says no, he's not going to get off the bridge. That seems...
I thought it was Data who told him to stay on the bridge.
Well, with Timothy's, no, they just come on, and they're, because Troy's like, let's go, leave them alone, let's like get out of the way, and he's like, no, I have this, I remember this, and then Data was like, okay, come show me at the computer, but Tim already was like, I'm staying.
All right, fair enough.
So then Tim remembers that they also on the Vico were saying warp power to the shields. And it's like, okay, maybe because they keep just adding power to the shields. I'm like, maybe you guys try something else. This is like not working.
Yeah.
And then Worf says that there's contact with the fuzzy circle in 31 seconds. And Data then says to drop the shields, and the distortion goes by. And you guys, I timed it. It was 31 seconds.
Yeah.
It actually was. Yeah, I was
Wow.
actually very surprised. Yeah, from when Worf finished his line to when they actually went
hit?
through the thing, it was 31 seconds. To right when it hit. Yeah, 31
Wow.
seconds. For once, TNG got the timing correct. I was, it was amazing. I could not believe it. I was like, wow, real time. Amazing.
Also, Data had plenty of time to explain why, but he just doesn't.
Yeah, he's like, drop the shields.
What are you talking about? He only had 31 seconds.
So, okay, basically, the shields are what caused the Vico. They kept adding powers to the shield, and that's what caused the increase in wave fronts. And what did I write here? They have been experiencing a harmonic amplification effect. The more energy they put into the shield, the worse the impact, which is what destroyed the Vico. So then they're like, great, we let it go. We dropped the shields. We're good. We're through. Let's boogie on out. Let's get out of there. Bye, Black Cluster. Goodbye. Okay, now we're at the now we're back in the classroom. I am very much okay. So the kids and the teacher are singing row, row, row your boat, but in different harmonies and shit or whatever. I don't know what it's called. I'm not.
Row, row, row your boat. It that is actually how it's traditionally sung, where one person starts and then another person comes in over again, but at a slightly different time.
No, and that's fine. But
yeah.
these kids seem too old to be singing row, row, row your boat.
Yes.
But also Tim's face is truly he's just not having it. And honestly, same.
Yeah.
They really love to do random children's songs on this
I was going to
ship.
say, are we still singing Row, Row, Row Your Boat in fucking 350 years? If so, kill me.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so then Troy and Data are back in the viewing room of the classroom, I guess.
Well-
and Troy says,
Sorry, I was just going to say, we still sing Ring Around the Rosie, and that's about the plague.
That's true.
we can also get rid of that too.
Yeah.
These songs are useless. So then Troy says to Data, is this difficult for you, Data? And Data goes, difficult. And then Troy says, to watch him moving away from being like you. And then Data says, that would require an emotional context, which I cannot provide, which...
Yeah.
Mm.
And Troy does give him a look like, I don't believe
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. She's like, girl, please.
Yeah.
Okay. So then Data goes to talk to Tim, and Tim is like, he's like, I miss my parents, but like, I'm okay. And he asks Data if he thought that like Tim was being silly to pretending to be an android. And Data's like, imitation is the highest form of flattery. Mm-hmm. I was like, oh, that's very cute. And then, but Tim's like, okay, but like, can we still hang out? And Data's like, yeah, I've got a bunch of human friends. We can totally still be buds.
Yeah.
And then the episode ends.
Yeah. And then we never see Timothy again.
Well, I hope Tim has regular therapy sessions with Troy and hangs out with Data because, ooh boy,
Yeah.
that child, that's upsetting.
Yeah.
Also, like the guilt of thinking that you killed like all those people,
Yeah.
that's gotta be like fucking wrecked.
It does explain why he was like a bit more like angry than sad. Like, because he was just he was just being defensive because he felt so guilty.
Yeah.
I mean, anger makes sense in any way, even if he wasn't carrying that guilt, but definitely adds an extra layer.
Yeah.
Yep.
I enjoyed this episode.
Yeah, this is one of my favorites. I just think it's fun. I think it's cute. Like, I like the interactions between Timothy and Data. And yeah. And I thought like the sort of can't really say which is the A plot and which is the B plot in this episode. I guess Timothy's the A plot.
Yeah, he definitely is.
Yeah. Yeah, so the B plot I thought was like held up all right. Like I thought it was a decent.
Yeah. I think this was like one of the sorry.
Oh no, I was just gonna say like it related to the A plot, so it really like fed into everything, and it didn't feel like it just was like a just there to be there. It had a purpose.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think like it made the episode flow much better because everything was connected. It wasn't just two completely separate things. And I do like in this that like Troy's involved, Data's involved, and yeah, I like it was more like a cooperative episode.
The episode, the premise reminds me of the one with Worf and that kid as well. However, this episode was executed much better in that it actually made Data and the child's connection like the center point of the episode, and that was something that the other episode kind of failed at. It just kind of tacked on the Worf and that kid thing a little bit into, like, it was a B plot at best.
Yeah.
And then had like a coda at the end that was the two of them. But this one was central to the plot, and they did a very good job of managing their interactions. And yeah, Dory, I agree with what you said earlier, in that the episode is almost more Troy than it is Data, except Data is the one going through a character arc here, and Troy isn't really, but she is absolutely necessary to the plot. It's weird though, because the episode technically isn't about either of them. It's about Timothy. And that's not something that Star Trek has done too often, where they base a story around the child rather than the child's connection to someone else, because it's not it's not Data's character who's growing in this episode. Like it does to an extent, but it's not about that. It's about Timothy. And more often than not, when they have a child star as like the focus of the episode, it's someone who's there to build a plot around one of the main characters and make it their character arc instead of the child's. So, like, I would argue that the previous episode actually did not really do a good job of doing a character arc of Alexander, in that Alexander's existence in that episode and going forward will be about Worf. And that's the whole point. It's Worf's character's addition.
Yeah, I like how they did it in this episode because, yeah, and I 100% agree, like, that it's usually with kids, it's related to, like, the adult, like, the, you know, one of the bridge crews, character development. And the only time we usually see, like, a character, you know, have their full thing is when it's some rando. Or like it's usually an adult who gets like their own thing, and they're never, and like half the time they have nothing to do with the crew.
Yes,
it's literally circumstantial. If you took away the crew, nothing would change. So like, yeah, so I 100% agree that I like how this was about Timothy, and they gave him the plot. I mean, obviously Data and Troy were heavily involved, but it wasn't necessarily about them. It was about him.
Yeah.
So I like that they did that as well. And they gave him the adult treatment, but like better, because so many times it just is not necessary.
Yes.
Like the main story has nothing to do with the bridge crew. And I really like how they like made them so integrated.
Yeah. And
this time,
Maggie, I
appreciate that.
I'm also with you on this, in that like all of the Data and Timothy scenes are fucking fire. Those are great writing, great scenes. They're really tight. They do a really good job of making you like both characters, which is weird for a child on Star Trek.
Yeah.
Yeah, Timothy was not an annoying little brat.
No.
He was nice.
No.
I mean, to be fair, we don't always get annoying little brats as children.
No,
like,
but usually we get
some
forgettable. Like,
kids.
Name a kid who you think you would be interested in seeing more of at some point in the future on Star Trek.
Okay, I can think of the children that were stuck in the elevator with Picard.
Yeah,
all
Marissa,
right, fair enough.
that child who the part was radishes, the radish
Yeah,
child.
he planted radishes and they came up
and the
all
murder
weird.
child and the terrifying child and the one who's definitely gonna kill somebody one day. Like those 3 kids, I would absolutely love to see them back.
Riker's fake son,
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that kid.
even though he was like a 1950s alien.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Yep. Oh god.
Yeah. So not a ton of kids, but there are a few that like are, I think, memorable.
Yeah. I'm thinking
their own
back
ways.
on it. I'm thinking back on it, and I think I feel like 80 to 90% of the time we feel like the child actor did a good job, but maybe they just weren't given anything good to work with. Like thinking back on the different like children we've had over the seasons, like almost every time we say, I think the kid did a good job, but the episode was just bad.
I think in a lot of cases we also give credit to them for being even younger. So there is that. Because I can definitely think of some child episodes upcoming in TNG that are absolutely not examples of good acting.
Yeah.
But, I mean, we'll get into all of that later when we get to those episodes.
Yeah.
Everybody was great. I liked this episode, and also, man, the like twist that it like nobody attacked them. It just was like the cluster and shit. Like they were trying to do stuff to save themselves, and they just were inadvertently making it so much worse.
What
Yeah.
happened to the kid? Like his trauma is actually completely believable too. Like something that's kind of unreasonable, in like a logical capacity. Like yeah, I mean, for anyone who knows these systems, it's quite literally impossible that you had anything to do with it. However, in that moment, in that stress, and especially given everything that followed, you can't help but feel, oh my god, this is my fault. It's
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
only way.
Especially since like the sheer coincidence that like everything got destroyed like right as he bumped into the computer,
Right.
Yeah,
you know. So like
man.
yeah, and the thing that's annoying though for me is that this is not the first time the ship's shields were feeding into whatever was destroying them. And it's like, you'd think like that might be something they'd try. It's like, oh, like let's see if like this is getting worse and worse the more we increase our shields. Let's see what maybe there's a correlation. You know, let's see if there's some causation here to be found.
But
That's the only
they
thing. for
never
me.
learn.
Yeah.
Nobody ever learns.
And at the end, Data just like he didn't have to be so cryptic. Like I know it's a TV show and they do it for drama, but there was so much time. Data could have just been like, the shields are feeding the shields are feeding into the waves. Drop the shields. Like
Data does this a lot because I
Yeah.
remember in the other was it the season finale of season 4, or like the premiere of season 5 when they are fighting the
Oh, yeah,
Romulans,
yeah.
and Data just kind of goes rogue, and he like barely gives an explanation of what he's doing, and everyone's like, "Wait, Data!"
Yeah.
And he does it. Yeah, Data just like not great at explaining. He just like gives us like, "We gotta do this," and then doesn't quite give a great reason why, even though like he's not wrong, but a little bit more information would go a long way.
yeah. Also, no one asks why. 'Cause like Riker just goes, that's suicide, Data. But Picard just looks at him, but like, does no one think to say like, hey, Data, why?
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure Data would have said if you asked why. Like, Data should have just said in the first place, but maybe ask why also.
Yeah.
With getting to your point, Jeff, where you said there's moments where Data feels like he's, you know, season 1 Data and stuff. To me, it came off of like, because to me, this is a really good episode to show like how much emotional intelligence Data has gained, but
Okay.
that he's also not perfect at it. it's like he, you know, he knows to tell Timothy, like, hey, everything's gonna be okay. He gets the cue to ask Timothy if he's having disturbing dreams. He understands that Timothy's painting might mean, like, that he's feeling something.
Traumatized.
Yeah, feeling something really harsh. But yet he still doesn't know that you shouldn't, like, just shit on a kid's art project. And, like,
Yeah.
he's still himself. He still, like, explains things in the way he understands the world. Like, he still says, like, when Timothy asks him, like, to hang out, he's like, that's acceptable. Instead of,
I
like,
think,
yeah, sure.
I think moments like that are what I mean, because, like, he did a lot more of that as younger TNG Data, and I feel like that has changed over the course of the series, and he's done less and less of that, and I feel like in
Yeah.
this episode he went back to doing more of it almost deliberately.
I
wonder if they just brought it back because they were gonna have Timothy pretend to be an android.
Yeah,
And
that's
so
quite
they kind
possible.
of like juiced it up to like make it more, which is like kind of a detriment to Data, considering how far he's come.
I will point out, yeah, it didn't take me out of the episode. I did notice it, and I was just like, Data doesn't talk much like that now. And there are just moments where I expected a different line out of Data, and it ended up being the more robotic ones instead.
Yeah. I feel like we see Data in work mode more often, and I feel like they do this every time he has an episode where it's more interpersonal stuff. So I feel like that's pretty consistent, that, like, when it comes to, like, the more, like, personal aspects of relationships, like, not in the context of, like, doing a job, he still has a long ways to go.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't think you're wrong, but I also didn't see it that way.
Yeah, that's fair.
Like, I totally see why you feel that way, but I don't.
That's fine.
I don't
mean,
feel
we've
like
we've
it-
both been watching Star Trek a long time, and we both have our own takes on it, and that's just
Yeah.
kind of how it is.
Yeah, it didn't personally feel like a step back for me.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't notice it as much. Like I don't know if maybe I just, I don't know. But like I didn't notice like that it was like Data season 1. It just kind of felt like, I don't know, normal, like, I don't know, it felt kind of regular Data-ish. I think what I've sort of been thinking about though is like how, I mean, yeah, we were talking about earlier, he doesn't give himself the credit, but I think it's not even a credit. He's unconsciously like experiencing these emotions and doesn't realize that's what he's doing. Because I guess also as someone who quote unquote doesn't feel emotions, it would be weird for like him to not necessarily recognize, but to like, I feel like it would be really weird for like, it would kind of take everything that he knows and put it on, turn it on its head. But at the same time, he has recognized in the past, like when Geordi was kidnapped, Data said he felt anxious.
Right.
And
right.
like he was able to recognize some feelings. But I don't know, I guess Data kind of goes back to the default of like, well, androids don't feel anything, but like he knows it, that he does. But I wonder if it just like, he just goes back to the default. He doesn't, it doesn't stay with him that he's like had these emotions, he's had these experiences. Maybe it's just something in his processing that he like can experience something and then, but just like moves on. It's not like lasting. But then I say that, but then I also remember when in the Measure of a Man episode, when he took out the little hologram of Tasha and like he was still like kind of sad with like that still meant something to him after all that time. So
I
Yeah.
feel like Data feels...
I don't know.
I feel like Data feels like, since he doesn't experience emotions in the way that humans do, that he kind of invalidates that. And he still doesn't have a perfect understanding of how human emotions work. So I still think it's a matter of, like, he just doesn't, like...
Understand it still.
Yeah. Because, I mean, he's been told his whole life that he doesn't have emotions, and that's what he understands. And, like,
Yeah.
no one's really... I don't think anyone's ever sat him down and be like, you realize, like, you understand emotions, like, more than you think you do, right? Yeah, I think it's just, like, because we've seen examples of how Data, like, has a lot of self-doubt and, like, self-doubt and, like, low self-esteem, I'd say. Like, he does it under the guise of, like, just being logical, of, like, when he, when he tells Picard and Dr. Crusher that, but my violin performance isn't going to be as good as, like, a human performance, right? Because I don't have, soul or whatever. He, really puts a lot of doubt on himself after he loses that game to the asshole guy. I think it speaks to someone who is not really confident in themselves, Like, he knows he has these abilities and stuff, but he doesn't have the confidence in himself. He's just, like, he's focused on his inadequacies. He's focused on everything he doesn't have rather than the things he does have, I think, overall.
Yeah, I mean, he says himself that he cannot take pride in his abilities. He cannot take pleasure in his accomplishments. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Data needs some real, like, self-reflection time.
Yeah, I think Data needs therapy.
Yeah, get him in with Troy ASAP. She's doing well right now. Get him in there.
Yeah, I never
That'd be
thought
actually
of that
nice.
before, but to me, talking it out right now makes sense. Like, Data is very much like, yeah, he's not confident in himself. He's always focused on the negative parts of himself rather than the positives.
He knows the stuff that he can do, but, like, because of, like, because, like, that's obviously like he's strong, he can do this and this, but that's because he's been programmed. But past that, yeah, he, like,
Yeah.
he
And
doesn't know how to, like, deal with that.
Because those are things that can be objectively proven too. It's like, it's pretty objective if you're stronger or can make more calculations faster and stuff like that. Those are things that can be measured pretty objectively.
Yeah, and there's some things that he obviously can't be programmed for.
Yeah.
So the stuff that he's not programmed for would make make him feel bad that he can't really do that, which in and of itself is, like, working on his self-awareness that he feels bad that he can't do stuff.
Yeah.
Data.
I feel like Data, like, because, like, his strength and intelligence and stuff is something that can be objectively proven. He's like, well, yeah, I can't deny that because, like, I can see that I am stronger, right? But it, like, having emotional intelligence and that kind of thing is very subjective, and Data is inclined to, like, he doesn't know how that feels. He can't see it for himself, right? Like, he takes he automatically takes the oh god, I don't know how to articulate this, but he just automatically, anything subjective he automatically thinks is like, no, I'm incapable of that, because there's no objective way to prove it.
I'm also just thinking, he something that, like, to me makes him feel like more human on this android to human spectrum is the fact that, like, it's very human to want something that you don't have.
Yeah.
And like my mom always says, like, oh, if you have straight hair, you want curly hair. If you have curly hair, you want straight hair.
Yes, yeah.
And like that always is like, you know,
Grass
so
is
many
always
brunettes
greener.
go. Yeah, so many brunettes go blonde, so many blondes go ginger. Nobody goes brunette.
Well, like, so, okay, this is going to sound like a brag, but I promise it's not. I have very, like, thick, nice hair, right? Like, very, oh, God, I can't believe I'm going to say it. Very, like, luscious, like, mermaid hair, right?
Yes.
Like, you've seen it when it's, like, long and stuff.
Oh,
And
yes,
everyone's
it
like,
is
oh,
mermaid hair.
yeah, your hair is so beautiful. It's so nice. It's a pain in the fucking ass to deal with. It is so annoying. And every single haircut I want is like, oh, that only works for people with thin hair. Because most people have thin hair, right? Or at least most white people do. And it's like, ugh, I get so annoyed, but everyone else is like, oh, I'm so jealous of your hair. And I'm like, I hate it. I don't hate it. I do actually like my hair, but it's just a lot of the things I want to do with it, I just straight up can't because my hair just won't do it.
I feel the pain of my. I look like I've been electrocuted. my curly hair is just an absolute. When it looks nice, like in the summer, I leave it curly, but like this rest of the year, I like straighten it. I do shit to it.
Yeah.
But like in the summer, people are like, oh, it looks so nice. And like, you don't even understand how long this fucking took.
Yeah.
And the amount of products I had to use and the amount of maintenance that goes into this. I'd
Yeah.
rather just like buzz cut, but my face is too round. I could not cut my hair that short. Yeah. It would not be a good look.
Yeah, because when you have curly hair, it's like you can't dry it. First of all, you're supposed to like diffuse it, and you can't comb it. Because that just ruins your curls. Like
I haven't brushed my hair in like 20 years.
Yeah. Like you're not supposed to. It ruins the fucking curls. So it's
Yep.
you have to.
Yeah.
It's this whole process.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's been my whole life. But yeah. So to me, like, oh, not to just have like, you know, you want something that physical that everybody wants.
Yeah.
It just, those are the first examples I thought of. But yeah. So to me that, yeah, Data is like experiencing more human stuff than he even realizes.
Yeah.
Of wanting something that he's not, you know, born with.
Yeah. It's very human to be envious.
Yes. Oh yes.
Okay. So on that note, let's move on to favorite moments and lines.
Okay, everything. Data and Tim were great, but my favorite moment of the Troy, fantastic, high fives all around. But my favorite moment this whole episode was Data trying to brush Timothy's hair.
Yeah,
that scene was so funny. He's trying to like get a grip on his head, but he keeps doing the like head movements. I thought that was so funny. Yeah, that's my favorite part. But there's like a lot of good stuff in this. But yeah. That's like number one favorite part.
That's also my favorite part for that and a slightly different reason. Which is I just love that they're making fun of how Brett Spiner performs Data with like the little head tilts and stuff. The little head jerks.
It's so good.
Yeah. I think I was thinking about it while we were talking, and I think the reason why that's so endearing is because it's like when you talk to a dog.
Yes.
And they tilt their head. Yeah.
Yes. Oh my God. 100%. Literally, as you were saying that, I was like, reminds me of like my roommate's dog. He like does these little like head tilts and like turns this, and I was like, I always think that it's a reaction. It's not. He's a dog. Doesn't know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolute 100% reminds me of a dog.
Yeah. So that was also my favorite moment of the episode. But yeah, lots of good stuff.
Mine is make Timothy the best android he can be.
Oh yeah, that was great.
Oh, so cute. Hello everyone, just editing Maggie popping in here to give a content warning just before we get into the predictions part of the episode. The next episode of the series unfortunately involves dealing with sexual assault via telepathy, and it's not graphic, but the discussions for the predictions, which we don't do a prediction, I just say what happens, And the discussions of the next episode are going to involve those topics unavoidably. If that's something that you don't want to hear, I would suggest skipping our next episode and just keep yourself safe. And we will welcome you back the episode following that. All right. Now we come to the part where everyone's going to be angry and disappointed.
Not me. I was already angry and disappointed. I know what's coming.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh no.
The next
Oh, no.
episode.
Oh no.
The next episode.
Why did I all of a sudden get like heart palpitations?
The next episode. Okay.
Dory, you know how this season has lots of Troy?
Yeah.
Yeah, the next episode is a Troy episode.
Oh no.
The episode is called.
How does she get traumatized this episode? Oh my god.
The episode is called Violations.
No! No!
Yeah. Yeah. I think.
How could they do this to be 30 years later?
I think I might not. I'm not going to make you do a prediction for this episode because it feels wrong. Basically, what happens is there are telepathic historians on board the ship, and Troy gets SA'd via telepathy.
Fuck!
Yeah.
That's it. That's the whole
I'm
episode.
sure my roommates just heard me screaming. I fucking hate it.
Yeah. And then they're trying to figure out who did it and stuff.
This is not the kind of whodunit I want to watch.
Yeah.
I'm so mad.
Yeah. At least in this episode, it's it's not like they do that to her and then they don't realize that's what it is throughout the episode. Like, this episode is about the fact that it is a violation. But
Jesus
still.
Fucking Christ.
Yeah. It's from what I remember, it's like not super graphic, and it is like she doesn't get physically attacked, but it's still the emotional trauma and shit. So,
Well,
yeah.
I guess before we even start the recording the next episode, Maggie,
Yeah.
prepare the warning. The trigger warning. I'm so mad.
Yeah, so I'm not going to make you do a prediction because it just feels wrong. That's basically what happens.
I do not want to speculate anything for this episode.
All right. Well, if you feel comfortable enough and safe enough, please join us for the next episode. If not, join us for the episode after that, which I am just going to double check to see if that's more fun. Okay, the episode after that is a more serious episode, but it's not a traumatizing episode. So yeah, we will see you next time on Fully Functional, a TNG podcast.